This is the most important election in the history of our country. I'm not a threat to democracy at all.
It's been 7 or 8 weeks since a would-be assassin fired 8 rounds.
How can you say it's luck when it's 20 million to 1, where that bullet could have missed?
And has it changed you?
Being president is a dangerous job. I never realized how dangerous.
RFK Jr. has offered his support to you and your campaign. Will he have a role in your administration? You are catching up with me in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I am catching up with former President Donald Trump and Republican nominee for president 10 weeks from the actual election. We're going to sit down and talk about a lot of things as we close in on the day. We're going to talk about where he stands after having an attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about how he feels about now Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about what he thinks the challenges are leading into this election and what has to happen to get independents to hear his message and come down on his side of the fence. We're going to ask him some hard questions and get some clear answers. Today, 10 weeks from the election. Mr. President, thank you for sitting down with me again.
Thank you.
Very proud to be talking to you. You've been really busy, and I have to ask you, it's been 7 or 8 weeks since would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks climbed on top of a roof on a shockingly close building right in front of you and fired 8 rounds from an AR-style assault rifle, shooting you in the ear.
Take a look at what happened.
Experts said, frankly, you shouldn't be here right now. Experts said a kill shot was almost a certainty. But yet, here you sit. You had to have asked yourself, you had to have reflected on this. How am I here and why am I here? How do you answer that question?
It's a very hard one to answer. When it happened, it was a whack. I mean, I said something's going on there. It was a real whack to the ear. But you're not thinking about that. And I was lucky I went down quickly, because if I didn't go down quickly, bullets were coming right over my head when I was down. I heard them. They were moving along. They moved pretty fast. I said, how fast does a bullet go? They said about 3,000 miles an hour. That's a lot. They gave it to me in feet, and then they gave it to me. I said, no, I want to know in miles per hour. And it's more than 3,000 miles an hour, and you hear it. You hear the whipping sound. So I was lucky in that regard. But the big luck was, because that's something you can control. You go down quickly. If you don't go down quickly, you have a problem. But the big thing was the turn. And it wasn't only the turn. It had to be a perfect 90-degree turn, or you would have been, I wouldn't be with you today. And I had to be looking at something to the right. And the people, we had massive crowds, and they were in front. So there was no reason to be looking to the right. You had no people right or left. And you know the graph, my all-time favorite graph, showing my great numbers on immigration, stopping immigration virtually at the border, which is a big subject. And I was very proud of that graph, but I only use it about 20% of the time. It's always on my left, and it's always at the end of my speeches, always. And this was the very beginning of the speech. I mean, like the very beginning, it was on my right. So if you add it all up, it's like millions to 1. Millions, the odds. But I made that perfect turn. I just see it on television again. It's today, just before I came in. It's up big on the screen again today. And in finding out, I have the endorsement of the NRA, but I don't know. I have no knowledge of guns. Like, as an example, I have 2 sons that have extreme knowledge. They're great shooters. And Don and Eric both told me separately that that's a guaranteed shot for a bad shooter from that distance. 130 yards sounded like a long way away. As a shooter, that's a very close target. They said, to relate it to me, they said it would be like sinking a 1-foot putt. I said, that's not good.
So why were you spared? You've had to reflect on this alone in the middle of the night in a golf cart riding down the way thinking about it. How do you answer that? Why were you spared?
So there had to be some great power, because you just can't say millions to one, millions to one. I used to say 1,000,000 to 1. It's much more than that, because, again, you have to pull down the sign. There has to be a reason to go right, and I never go right. There's no reason. And not only go right, it's for about 1/8 of a second. It's not just right. It's out of all the time that we're on this planet, it's 1/8 of a second, right? So I shouldn't be with you. So,
is there a purpose?
Well,
is there a reason you think you were spared?
I mean, the only thing I can think is that God loves our country and he thinks we're going to bring our country back. He wants to bring it back. It's so bad right now what's happening. When you look at the crime, the horrible things that are happening inside our country, and it can be solved. It can be solved fairly quickly. It has to be God. I mean, how can you say it's luck when it's, 20 million to 1, okay? I mean, it's just not possible that I was in that position. It's the only position where that bullet could have missed.
And you believe in God?
I do.
You believe God's hand was in this that day?
I believe so, yeah, I do.
And you talk about the country. You believe you have more to do. You weren't done. You were spared for a reason.
Well, God believes that, I guess. We'll have to see. Number one, I'm in an election with a very vicious group of people. I won the election against Biden. I was up by 17 or 18 points after the debate. And they said, you know what, he's going to lose. They went and told him he's going to lose and we're going to change you out. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. In fact, he said, only God will change me. But so who knows what happened there. But he said, I'm not leaving. He got 14 million votes. And Kamala got none, 0. She ran against him. She got 0. She never made it to Iowa, which is the first state. And here she is. She's on the other side. But, it's like nobody ever had this before. You have an opponent. In politics, you have an opponent, and you win or you lose. But you don't have an opponent, and then you're doing well against the opponent. They take him out. They give you a new opponent. They give you a nice, fresh opponent. And so I have to win that. And if I win that, that would really serve to say that there's some incredible power up there that wanted me to be involved in saving, and maybe it's more than saving the nation, maybe it's saving the world. I get along with all those tough guys. And Russia wouldn't have gone into Ukraine. You'd have 1 million people living right now. You'd have cities all over Ukraine. I mean, these magnificent cities with the domes and the golden domes and towers. They'd all be up. They're right now demolished. So many, those cities, the country is just demolished. Israel wouldn't have happened. October 7th would have never happened. Iran was broke with me. And I don't want them to be broke, but I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. So
you think you're meant to take those challenges on? You're meant to serve in that way?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. In thinking about it, it's beyond any of us, I guess, to really know that. But I can say that for that bullet to have gone along this path right here, and for that bullet to have gone along that path and hit the top of my ear, as opposed to any other place, would have been no good. And it traveled that path for a long way, relatively speaking. That path was traveled for a long way.
It killed a man. It killed a man behind you.
It did. It killed a man, and
Corey Comparatore, and
right.
It critically injured 2 others
who thought they weren't going to make it. The doctors said they will not make it, and they did. The doctors were incredible.
You've been very attentive and involved with those families, and I understand a lot of support and help for those families has taken place.
Well, we gave a friend of mine who's a pretty rich guy, was very moved by what happened, and he said, do you mind if I give Corey, he called him Corey, everyone calls him Corey now, firefighter, great firefighter, fire chief of a small town.
Volunteer, right?
Volunteer, no substantial money, obviously. They live
Right.
They live comfortably. They love each other. They have a great family, beautiful family, actually, but not money. And I said, good, what do you want to give? He said, $1 million. He wrote out a check right in front of me for $1 million, and we presented it to the wife. That's more money than they have ever even thought about. But on top of that, we raised close to $6 million in GoFundMe, and that's going to be split up. We're doing it now, obviously with Corey's family getting more. The other two made it, and they're going to be in good shape. I can't stress how good those doctors were. It was going to be 3 dead, and it turned out to be 1, but they were hit hard.
Well, it was
and
terrible.
they just made it. They were very close also. And so they're going to be getting probably close to $1.5 million each.
Ballot harvesting, this mail-in ballots.
It's all terrible.
All of this. But those are the rules of the game right now.
That's right.
Is the Republican Party going to play that game better than the Democrats, or are they going to be complaining about it and get beat at the game with the rules that are in play right now?
It shouldn't be allowed. It's a whole different mindset.
But it is.
You're right. Republicans like to go there on Tuesday and vote in person, and that's been for a long time, many years, decades. It's a custom almost. It's a family custom. It's a beautiful thing. The Democrats play a different game. And you have ballot harvesting, but you also have people getting ballots. I mean, in California, you have people getting 7 ballots, Democrats. For instance, I look at California. I gave a speech. I had a crowd so big. I said, there's no way I could lose California, but automatically they mark it down if you're a Republican as a loss, that you lose by 5 million votes. I said, 5 million votes? I guarantee, if Jesus came down and was the vote counter, I would win California, okay? In other words, if we had an honest vote counter, a really honest vote counter, I'd do great with the Hispanics, great. I mean, at a level that no Republican's ever done. But if we had an honest vote counter, I would win California.
You think so?
Oh, I think so. I do. I see it. I go around California. They have Trump signs all over the place. It's a very dishonest. Everything is mail-in. They send out 38 million ballots. I think it is around 36, 38 million ballots. They send them. You know, when you go into a good place, because we have a lot of very honest places too. You go out to the Midwest, you go to Iowa and Idaho and, places that they wouldn't even think about it. It's a very honest system. But think of it, 38 million, they don't have a voting booth. But when you go in, even in Florida, I went in to vote in Palm Beach. They know who I am, but still, sir, may I see you this? May I see you that? May I see your card? They look at you, everything. I said, it would be really very tough to cheat. In California, they don't do anything. All they do is you get a card and you're supposed to send it back. So that has to go through a mailman. It has to go through all these different things. And many people, and I'm sure you've heard this, many people get many more than 1 ballot. And they vote them. They vote them. They'll send in 7 ballots.
But if those are the rules,
you have to win.
Then should the Republicans play hard under those rules?
The Republicans should have played much harder over the years. And this is 10, 12 years ago. It started, look, France had mail-in ballots. They went away from them because people were cheating. Anytime you have a mail-in ballot, there's going to be massive fraud. And Jimmy Carter, who's the happiest man alive today because his administration is brilliant by comparison to Harris and Biden. I put her now first because I think Biden is like gone. I don't even know where he is. He's like at a beach someplace in California. But Jimmy Carter was put in charge of a study commission with some very dignified people, very highly regarded people, senators, retired senators. And their primary conclusion was you can't have mail-in ballots. If you have mail-in ballots, there will be cheating. And this is Jimmy Carter, and he's right, 100%. What we have to do is get control, and then we have to change it. And it's a very simple change. Same-day voting. Everybody votes. You know, remember the old days? Everybody would go. It was a Tuesday. You'd go. You'd vote. Even if you declare a holiday, a voting holiday, which would be fine. But same-day voting. But importantly, paper ballots. No machines that go up to space and whatever happens, happens. Voter ID. The Democrats don't want voter ID and proof of citizenship. You have to be a citizen. But we won a very important Supreme Court case where essentially you have to be a citizen to register to vote. It's a big win. You know, this has been an issue. Abortion's been an issue. Roe v. Wade. For 52 years, they've tried to get it back into the states, and I got it back into the states. That means Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, and all legal scholars. It was always wrong being in the federal government. I got it out, back in the states, and now there's voting taking place. And I believe in exceptions, like Ronald Reagan believed in exceptions, very important for life of the mother, rape, incest. But I will tell you, that's something it's very interesting how it's working out. It had to be done because it was ripping our country apart.
So RFK Jr. has offered his support to you and your campaign.
It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. I met again with President Trump and his family members. I was surprised to discover that we are aligned on many key issues. In those meetings, he suggested that we join forces as a unity party.
How do you feel about that?
I'm very honored by it. He's a very smart guy, a different kind of a guy, but very smart, loves our country, has some, I think, very good views on a lot of different things. And I've known him for a long time. We've been somewhat friendly, actually. And I think he's going to be a great asset. I think he adds a lot to the election. He's got a good following, tremendous following. I think he adds a lot to the election, and I think he adds a lot to if we win. I mean, he's got some very interesting ideas and good ideas. I think he'll be a fantastic and influential person in terms of getting this country back on track. I think if we win, I think he can be very valuable to the country, and I think he can also help us build up the margins. You know, you were talking about votes. Some people say this could be a landslide too. You know, they could say it would be a landslide. And it's not going to be a landslide on their side. It could be a landslide on our side. It won't be a landslide on their side. It should be a landslide because she will destroy the country. She's going to destroy the country. Look at the job she did at the border. She was a border czar. Just look at the job. In history, there's never been a mess like that. And now they have their standard line. You know, they're great for misinformation. She's got a standard line. We did a wonderful job at the border. And she'll say it 100 times, 1,000 times. And a lot of people, they're driving cabs, they're accountants, they're doctors. They're not into politics like you are. I know how much you are. The fact is, they'll say it 100 times and they think that maybe people will start to believe what she's done to this country. And this is beyond Biden, because she was in charge of the border.
Of course.
And that's the way she'll run the country.
Will he have a role in your administration? He's a very experienced trial lawyer.
He is.
He's tried a lot of large cases, and a lot of it environmental. So I thought, you know, he might play a role environmentally. He might play a role as Attorney General. There's a lot of things he could offer to the administration.
That's true. No, he's a very smart guy. But
you welcome him.
I do.
You welcome his support.
Well, number one, I've known him a long time,
right.
And I've always had a good relationship. I mean, we're sort of on opposite sides of some issues, but I've always had a good relationship with him, and I'm very honored by his support.
Well, I've spoken to him about you in the past, and he's always spoken of you with a great deal of respect. Even though you guys have been campaigning against each other, yeah. He's always spoken of you with a great deal of respect. So it's not surprising to me that he supports you. So that wasn't a surprise to me.
Well, one thing he said to me, and he said the same thing that I say to everybody, November 5th is going to be the most important day in the history of our country. I believe that.
Yeah. I think there hasn't been an election like this for generations, yeah. To be sure. Mr. President, thank you for sitting down and talking to me.
Thank you very much.
We'll be seeing you on the trail.
Yep, we will.